Hello, AP exams just finished. I finished my final makeup AP exam, which means it's time to rank some AP classes. So we have some AP classes listed down here. We have all of them. And I took a total of 19 AP classes in high school. I don't think that's a lot because most of my friends took like 22, but here we are. So I'm going to go with some of the ones that I just can't fairly judge. And I think that's gonna be just all of the um, foreign language exams. I had friends that took the AP French exam, AP German exam, the AP Spanish, Lang and Lit exams. Um, I just don't think I can form a sufficient opinion on these foreign language classes or AP Music Theory. I'm just not qualified in that subject. I forgot to add AP Latin on there. I had friends take AP French, AP German, AP Spanish, Lang and Lit, AP Chinese, and AP Latin, so I had no one take AP Italian or AP Japanese that I know. But I just don't think that I can form an opinion. I do know that the people that tend to do relatively well on these exams uh, are very good at learning languages or speak that language at home. That doesn't mean if you don't, you're not gonna do well. It's just that I think it's so much easier for the people that speak these languages at home to get it. And then AP Music Theory, I have heard one person say something about AP Music Theory, and they said that was the hardest class they've ever taken. And that was just like they were just talking to a teacher about their classes. So I don't know if that's just like a stretch or what. So I'm just gonna go through the ones that I haven't taken. So I think I'm gonna put the AP like drawing related classes in C tier because a lot of people tend to do well on them, which is art AP 2D design. What's the other one? 3D design and AP drawing. These I've I know people that get fives on this exam, and a lot of people that do tend to get fives on this exam, but that's because they spend a lot of time doing art, and so I can form an opinion on it because it's a cool class, and I really like seeing what people create for this class. So that's why it's like good, but it's not something I would recommend to the average person. It's like if you're good at art, you like art, take this class. Um, European history. I did not take this class. Everyone that at my school usually took AP World and AP US History, and some people ended up taking AP European History their senior year. And they basically said it's about the same as a push, just like centralized in Europe. And so for that, I'm gonna put it in C tier, and I'm also gonna put a push in that class because it's the same reason. So I also, even though I did take a push. So then we have AP US Government and AP Comparative Government. I went through some of the like, free response questions, and I think that both of these courses could be self-studied in like 2 days to get like above a three on these exams. I didn't take these classes, but they seem relatively straightforward. There was like Um, I looked at a past response to kind of help formulate my understanding of what you have to do. And the first one was like, without even taking this class, I think I can get 3 out of 4 of these because I know what socialism is. Like, socialist policy. Well, socialism is like welfare. Okay, so you can like do that. And so it seems like it could be self-studied relatively quickly, is from my understanding. I also did not take AP Human Geography, and from what I understand, it's a pretty easy class, so I'm going to put it in an A tier just because it's an easy class. It's commonly taken by freshmen and sophomores that just want a GPA bump or baby steps into AP classes. And I did take this class, and so I'm going to put CS Principles probably even above Human Geo. If you're trying to get into AP classes, seeing like the workload, I would recommend these 2 classes. With CS Principles, it's literally just a bunch of multiple choice as the AP exam and a project that you can just do ahead of time. And so the workload for this class is probably about the same as a regular class, honestly, and in human geography. It's not a difficult class and it just introduces you to AP classes. So freshmen and sophomores trying to dip your toes in AP classes, take these. Uh, what else did I not take? I did not take AP biology. I've heard horrible things about this class. I actually want to look at it for response before I solidify my vote. So I go into AP biology and I scroll down. I start seeing some AP statistics, first of all, and then I see some bloody calculus. Since when is calculus a prereq for AP Bio? I don't think it is, but this is calculus. This model is disgusting. But I think I'm gonna leave it at D tier, honestly. I have a bit of a bias, but I just don't like biology. I don't know. That's like I get. A lot of sophomores tend to take this class though, but find it quite difficult. AP Environmental Science seems like it's also an introductory AP class, but it's an introduction to the science side. Like human geography is an introduction to like I guess A push and stuff. And environmental science is an introduction to I guess the biology AP classes maybe. Uh so I'll put it up there as well. And Physics C Mechanics is a class I didn't take. And I think it's actually a pretty good class with the introduction to Newtonian mechanics with calculus concepts. I actually I wouldn't I need this is probably to recommend to people. So it's a good class, it's important, but if you're not gonna be an engineering student, you probably don't need it. But it's still an interesting class. Alright, now we're left with all of the classes I did take. I guess I will go in order. So Physics 1, I feel like everyone should just take Physics 1 just to have some level of physics background. I mean, almost 60% of people failed the AP exam last year. It's like 57% or something like that. But just having a decent enough background in the world around you seems pretty important. So by the way, I put it CS principles at the top because just having an understanding of computers is probably a decent and important. What else did I take sophomore year? Sophomore year I took AP Stats. Very useful class. I would recommend every single person with a decent understanding in math to take this class. Let's see, this class is just the concept of a lot of people find it really boring, but the ability to estimate what a probability is given basically the outcomes you have. And if you know a probability, basically being able to calculate the percent chance that something happened. Like if I have a fair coin and I flip 8 heads out of 10, we can use stuff from AP statistics to figure that out. It's just things that are have two options. Either you do it or you don't. Like you make a shot or you don't. That is very important just in life to just figure out probabilities of things. So I would recommend everyone to take this class. Sophomore year, I also took AP Seminar. I would not recommend unless you just want to be a researcher. Actually, I'm gonna move these down. These aren't super useful classes unless you want to be like a history major. I don't know. No, that's what I'm thinking, and biology is just a dumb class. So what I took sophomore year? Oh, world history. Boring class, you can fall asleep with your eyes. You learn how to fall asleep with your eyes open. Uh, like I thought it would be a lot more of the 1900s with the World War One and World War Two. There was barely any of that. My world history teachers just read from the textbook the entire time. It was the most boring class. The stuff that I learned in world history was uh, the stuff I already knew. With at least APUSH and what I've seen from European history, that it's some of it's a repeat, but it's not. But it goes so much more in depth about stuff than what I've learned in elementary and middle school. Junior year, Calc AB, extremely useful class. AP Psych, extremely useful class. Okay, let me talk about these two. Calc AB is the introduction to calculus class. Calculus is the language of the everyday. Even if you don't pass the AP exam, it's a good introduction into being able to understand the world around us with uh, math, with the idea of differential equations, seeing how derivatives and integrals relate to each other, what they do and what they mean. It's just a very useful class. In AP Psychology, you could also probably take this as a freshman as an introduction to an AP class if you really wanted to. Uh, it's just a crud ton of vocabulary, but it teaches you about the brain, and we started with the how to study unit, and so I learned how to effectively study for my AP classes because of this class. It teaches you that sleep is important and like about dreams and stuff. It's a really interesting and useful class to apply to your life. Calc BCA. I didn't finish my junior. Comp Sci A. Everyone should learn how to code, honestly. Okay, I'm gonna move the US Give up because people should know how the government works. So I'll bump that up to A tier and probably Comp Sci A. So this isn't just my opinion on the classes, it's what I how important I think they are. Uh, so Comp Sci A, everyone is learning to code, and this society you kind of need to know how to code. And Comp Sci Principles teaches you the basics of that, and CSA expands on it. So you don't necessarily have to take CSA, Comp Sci with if you've taken Comp Sci Principles, but if you want a decent understanding when you go into some other coding job, then it's a decent class off. So I'll give it at the top of B tier. Uh, Physics 2 I took junior year. Mm, I wouldn't say I really recommend it. I wouldn't say don't take it, but it's basically everything that's left over from physics. Like, there's optics, thermodynamics, some electricity and magnetism, and it's all algebra based. It's interesting, but it is not extremely applicable to the average student. All right, English language. I'm gonna give this a B tier. I'm gonna say you should probably take this class to learn about um, how to write, and on that topic, AP research, how to write and research better. But I like AP research a lot better than AP seminar because it's a lot more in depth. With both of these classes, you learn how to effectively write. Uh, you learn how to argue your point in AP language, and you learn how to basically defend your research and insert yourself into the gap in scientific research, which is pretty cool. A lot of students should probably do some kind of research, especially if they want to do their PhD, or this is just an introduction of how to do in-depth research. So I think that's applicable to a lot of students. So I'll move this above AP ComGov. I also took AP Chemistry junior year. So it's more applicable than Physics 2. Also, I think I might have did drawing classes just down here. I would do I can't really form an opinion on it because okay, I'm gonna put AP Chemistry in C tier. A lot of people say it's the class that make them want to drop out of high school is because it's extremely difficult. Yes, it is a brutal class. I have no idea how I made an A both semesters because you learn about some w- interesting things that almost nobody got, even by test day. There was like 3 or 4 people that had a good understanding of the acid and base titrations by the end of the year, which is kind of depressing. But it is applicable in the sense of the stoichiometry that you learn here is basically unit conversions and how to effectively convert between different units. with grams molar mass. Uh, you with you learn how to create relate Faraday's constant with how much something can be plated given a current and some time and whatever. It's just very good for unit conversion. So I'd recommend AP Chemistry to for that, but I think you can learn that in grade level chemistry as well. But it expands on it. This makes you a master of unit conversion and a good ton of other stuff. And now for the APs I took senior year. Got Calc BC. So think hmm, Calc BC low key the most used. It's the college equivalent of Cal 2. Okay. And some people skip Cal AB and go to BC. You have to be a masochist to do that. That's all I'm gonna say. Because it goes so much quicker. There's a there's more. It's basically Calc AB with 2.5 units tacked on. So because you learn about series, a parametric equation, polar equations, and there's something I'm missing. Polar, parametric, series. Oh, and just other integration techniques. And polar is kind of useful, but the average student wouldn't really need it. Series, I guess looking at infinity is sometimes useful, but nowhere near as applicable as Calc AB. And integration techniques, I mean, everyone's going to have Wolfram alpha in the real world if to solve complex integrals. Uh, Next is art history. That is an F tier. I'm sorry. My art history teacher, wonderful woman, but I just could not stay interested in that class. It's 250 art pieces. 250. And you have to know, and you can kind of group them by what some things generally do. And when it's like what visual characteristics, you can put dome for some of them, and as long as you can kind of talk about it, you get points on their free response. But there's 6 essays, and it's so excruciatingly painful. Like, it's a 2 hour free response, and of the probably 60, 70 kids that took AP Art History, I'd say 30 minutes in, a good 70% of them had their heads down and were asleep 30 minutes in. It's just very boring. The only people who care about this class are going to be art history majors. Yeah, lame. English literature, I'm giving that an A tier. I am not an English person, but I love this class. Very applicable to just, it's not necessarily applicable, but I think it's a good class to have to be able to read and analyze books. Uh, Reading like Paradise Lost and Frankenstein, Beowulf, just the ability to analyze at a deeper level. And because I would have never considered myself an English person, but reading these books is the discussions and what you learn from them is very, very interesting. Physics C, E, and M. Uh, I'd say this class kind of helps you with some calculus, so I'm gonna put it above Physics 2. But this is always a decent class. It's very brutal. You learn about basically the relationship between electricity and magnetism in this class, hence the name. Uh, AP Microeconomics, it's a crud ton of graphs. Uh, and everything is derivatives of supply and demand. So you get a supply and demand curve where it's perfectly competitive and where everyone is like the demand curve is basically flat because you can't change the price because if you increase your price, no one's gonna want to buy it from you because there's just a crud ton of other people to buy it from. If you lower your price, then there's just so many other people that it's just you're irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't do anything. And then this mostly derivatives supply and demand is kind of useful with the idea of um, m- just how to create a business and with product and stuff. But it doesn't teach you how to pay your taxes, which I kind of thought it would when I signed up for these classes. But if you're gonna start a business, it's useful to have in your back pocket. Macroeconomics, it teaches you about the entire economy, so like aggregate demand and supply. Very useful. Uh, it talks about recessions and how that relates to everything. So, so these are just kind of useful to have in your back pocket. So I would recommend these classes. That is my AP tier list. Goodbye.